kids, welcome to day 2 of spiritual formation. We're going to be looking at our Wordless book again. Yesterday, we learned that God is holy and God is light. There is no darkness in him at all. That's why we use the colored gold. When he made the world perfect and very good. But when we look at the world today, we see darkness all around us. Sometimes it might even feel like there is no light in the world at all. Today's page, then, is the dark page. But why is the world we know so different from what we read in the first pages of the Bible, where we see God creating a world that is perfect and good? When God made people, he gave us every good thing in all of creation to rule over. We walked in a perfect relationship with God, but the first people, Adam and Eve, wanted more than what God gave them. They themselves wanted to be God. God gave Adam and Eve one rule when he made them, that they could eat from any tree in the Garden of Eden, except from the tree of the knowledge of good and of evil. If they did, they would die. But when Satan, a fallen angel who disguised himself as a snake, told Adam and Eve they wouldn't die if they ate from the forbidden tree, but would become like God, the fruit suddenly looked very good to them, and they took the fruit and ate it. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and of evil, they made a decision for the entire human race. They chose disobedience, evil, and rebellion over obedience, holiness, and a perfect and beautiful relationship with God. We read in the Bible that sin entered the world because one man sinned, and death came because of sin. Everyone sinned, so death came to all people. So one man's sin brought guilt to all people. But what is sin? Sin is much more than making a mistake. Sin is everything we think and say and do which goes against what God has said is good and perfect and true. Have you ever sinned? Maybe you haven't murdered anyone, but God says that if you even hate someone in your heart, that's murder in his eyes. This is because sin starts in our hearts. This is where Adam and Eve's sin started. And this is where our sin starts too. God looks at what's in our hearts, and he tells us that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart are only evil all the time. That means that what we think is only evil all the time. And the most evil thing we can ever do is reject God in our words, actions, or in our secret thoughts. Our hearts are no longer good. They are evil and filled with darkness. We are born with hearts that want to sin. Even King David in the Bible, a man after God's own heart, says, "Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me." When God created us, we were his friends. Now we are all born as enemies of God. Because God is holy and we are evil, we are born separated from God. The punishment for our sin is spiritual and physical death and eternal separation from him. And because we are evil, there are no good things we can do to clean out the darkness of our hearts. There's nothing we can pay to make ourselves right with God. We need our hearts completely changed. But what can change our hearts? Is there any hope for us? Can we ever be brought back into a relationship with God? God says that there is no forgiveness of sins without the shedding of blood, and that's why our heart today is red. We can't do anything, but tomorrow we'll see what our just, loving, and gracious God has done to bring us back to him. To continue our Wordless book, we are going to cut out the dark page and the red heart. Today we'll need to have the cutout templates for the dark page, the red heart, our Wordless book to keep filling, some scissors, our glue gun, something to put the glue gun on, and extra glue gun sticks. Remember, today we looked at the dark page, which represents sin and the evil that's in the world and in our hearts. And we cut out the red heart to remind us that without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. There is nothing that we can do to make our hearts right before God. There's no work we can do. So let's get to cutting out our shapes and gluing them into our wordless book. Let's cut out our second day's square. It's the dark square. Make sure again that you cut along the lines so that everything lines up nicely inside of your book. Now that we have our dark square cut out, I want to make sure that you are on your second page for day 2. And we're going to do the same thing that we did for the first day. We're going to take our glue gun and put some glue along the seam and put the black page down. And then we can lift up our page and glue along the inside. And if there's any excess on the sides, you can trim that off. But if it all looks good, you can leave it as it is. There we go. And turning our glue gun off, we're going to take our red heart and cut this shape out as well. And we can put the heart into day 2's flap. And so now we can remember the holiness of God, the perfection of creation, how we chose to sin, and sin separates us from God, and that the only forgiveness that's found is through the shedding of blood. See you guys tomorrow.